Welcome to today's webinar. Hi everyone, my name's Matt Knutson, Senior Product Marketing Manager at MHC. I'm excited to welcome you to today's MHC webinar, AP that pays, unlock rebates on every payment. Transform your accounts payable from a cost center into a revenue engine. Discover how to earn automatic rebates on every supplier payment while maintaining the secure workflow you already trust. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. Today's webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive a follow-up email after the webinar with a link to the recording. All participants will be muted, but please put your questions in the chat. We've set aside time at the end for Q&A. The experts for today's webinar are Kevin Monroe, Senior Account Executive at Bottomline, and Blaine Sanderson, Senior Product Manager at MHC. Kevin, can you provide just a brief intro for attendees?
Sure, Matt, thanks. So Kevin Monroe, I'm with Bottomline. I've been here now at Bottomline for about 13 years. All those years have been tied to our B2B solution, Paymode. Worked in many areas of Paymode, most often in a sales capacity, helping not just payers, but also vendors for the business payments, to help make it more simple and secure. Currently, Senior Account Executive, as Matt mentioned. I support our technology partnership channels, MHC being one. Work really closely with the MHC team and its customers to help them improve their supplier payment process while also monetizing those payments. Really thrilled to be a part of the discussion today alongside Blaine, who I will kick it over to now.
Thanks, Kevin. Again, Blaine Sanderson. I've had about 15 years experience, 14 plus in delivering invoice automation solutions as well as payment automation solutions. I've been with MHC for about 3 years, but I was actually at Bottomline before that, and I helped them deliver both invoice automation, but also integrated payments offerings for strategic ERPs. Great to be with you today.
Great, thanks Kevin and Blaine. Now I'll switch it back over to Blaine again, and he'll just step through what you can discover today during today's webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So Payments Plus, it delivers value in really 3 general areas. First, you're able to realize substantial revenue in the form of rebates for each card and Premium ACH payment made through the network. Secondly, those payments are made within a framework that has state-of-the-art vendor and payment verification, and really a stellar track record, 0 fraud in over 450 billion of handled spend. Finally, we'll talk about operational efficiency gains. Moving from check or basic ACH to premium products, you're able to realize those efficiencies, reduced vendor administration through exclusive or enhanced remittance reporting, and network level vendor maintenance. Next slide, Matt. Okay, so some of you know us because of offerings that you're already using, right? You're utilizing either our check and PPay offering or our ACH offering. And Payments Plus is a comprehensive offering that includes those traditional components while entering or extending into these new payment types. And the great part of this is you just keep making payments the way you've always made them. Payments Plus builds off the same NorthStar experience that you guys have been used to using while enjoying an ability to seamlessly add these new types of payments. Getting paid to pay securely and with operational scalability. So let's turn it over to Kevin now, who will talk us through some of the details.
Sorry, it was on mute. Yeah, so to start off, I figured it'd be helpful to touch a bit upon who Bottomline is and what Paymode is. Just to give you an idea of who MHC partnered with and kind of talk a little bit about some of what differentiates the MHC Payments Plus offering to maybe other supplier payment solutions you either have in place today or might have heard about from other places like a bank or another tech company. Some of you might be familiar with Bottomline and or Paymode. We're not a new company. We've been around for about 35 years. We're based here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, about an hour north of Boston. We're a global company, so we have a little over 2,500 employees globally. the business payment solution, Paymo, that we partnered with MHC on, it's been around for decades. We, Bottomline, purchased it actually from Bank of America back in about 2009, late 2009. Since we've grown to the largest B2B network in the U.S., we process over $450 billion each and every year. Those are all electronic payments to about 600,000 suppliers. So that the scale is certainly there. We're not unique in the fact that we can process ACH and virtual cards. However, I do think what makes us kind of differentiate in the market is that we not only drive rebates on virtual card payments, which I'm sure you're familiar with, either you have, again, a program in place or at least a value one previously, but we also drive rebates on ACH payments, which historically have cost money. We're also able to drive those rebates faster than anyone else offering a solution like this because we have what we call this network effect. So I touched upon, we have about 600,000 suppliers that we already have set up, ready to be paid electronically, whether it's virtual card and or ACH. But this network effect is, what you as a potential new payer would get into your program on day one. So when we enroll a supplier, we do so on behalf of this network. So it's not just current payers, but it's also future payers. We have a really big prevalence in healthcare, higher education, manufacturing, property management, real estate. So those verticals, not stricken to those verticals, but those are 5 where we have a really big concentration of payer community. And in turn, a lot of those vendors they're using and paying, they're fairly ubiquitous. Some of the larger healthcare suppliers that use across the board by hospitals and healthcare systems. So because of this network effect I'm talking about, we've been campaigning to these, Cardinal Health, McKesson, Owens & Minor, Cintas, these big vendors for, as well as little vendors, but bigger vendors for the healthcare space for decades. So we created personal relationships with them. We have a dedicated rep that works all with these suppliers. And when we've gotten them to enroll for one payer or many payers, they're doing so on behalf of future payers. So if you're sitting there thinking, like, who would enroll in my program? Who do you have in your network? We're going to have a lot of these day one open acceptors that you're going to be able to pay right away. So as soon as you're up and running in a short amount of time with MHC Payments Plus, we're going to give you your first activation file. And it's going to have a lot of vendors that you can take from whatever you're paying them today, whether it's a check, in-house ACH, or otherwise wire. You could then pay them through this method and start earning rebates right away. That's just both on virtual card as well as higher ed. That's going to help you if you're thinking about, transforming or trying to move away from things like paper check, or simply just improve AP. In my discussions, I know how hard it is to get any new project greenlit. I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing. It has to have a strong ROI. You have to have the business case in place. This is a way for you to get money back in from a program versus it going out, because this generates a rebate, as Blaine mentioned, on every payment. So this could help you potentially get your AP project or supplier payment initiative slot ahead of other IT resources that you're jockeying for internally for other projects. So really compelling offering. We talk a little bit about efficiencies. The rebates are great. Getting a payment out the door is a burdensome process. As you know, there's many manual steps, especially when it comes to sending paper checks. As much as many people are trying to move away from paper checks, they're having a tough time doing it alone just because of all the resources, the strategy, the time, and in many cases, having to try and kind of layer in any fraud detection components in your process. It's a tough thing to do on your own. You're having to gather, maintain, store all your banking information for your suppliers. You have to get it from them. You have to have a discussion potentially about what you're doing and why you're moving away from checks and going to an ACH. And a lot of times what I hear is the intention is there to move away from check, but they've only really made a dent in the check stack, 20, 30, 40%. Some customers I talk to are a lot higher than that, 70 to 80%, but they've been doing it for a decade, and they've been trying, kind of hand-by-hand combat to get away from things like paper check. So because of that network effect that I talked about, that's going to be a big efficiency. The biggest thing, though, to mitigate fraud, as well as create efficiencies for your back office, is that we are going to be the ones onboarding your suppliers, not just the day ones, but the ones above and beyond that. We have a team that's going to do the supplier onboarding. We're gathering, we're housing, we're storing, we're maintaining that banking information so you don't have to. Anytime it changes, if there's a knock or they have to put in new bank information, that's usually the point at which fraud typically occurs. We know that, obviously, so we're pausing the account for the vendors. We're revalidating that. That means you don't have to. That frees you and your team up to do other things, other projects. So the efficiency gain is not just there from making an electronic payment versus a check, but what we're going to be freeing up and things we're taking off your plate in your back office is a real thing. It's going to certainly show you more efficiencies. Now, the next few slides, Matt, if you want to go to the next one, we'll talk a little bit about a true ROI. Excuse me. That we looked at from one of the customers for MHC. So this is based upon, we usually get a 12-month spend history file from our customers we speak to. There's a discovery call. We kind of map up, yes, you have an initiative for AP. Yes, you want to improve supplier payments. And yes, I want to take a look at what MHC Plus can do for me. So they'll in turn send us a 12-month spend history file. This one here was about a $150 million AP spend healthcare or hospital. So we took a look at it. You can see the numbers in the top part, the AP totals across the board. They had about 800 vendors, about 6,000 transactions. We then took a look at what would it make sense for this program. So this is primarily, at least for our part of this MHC Plus offering, a B2B offering and USD to USD payments. We're not going to be looking at individual payments or B2C or reimbursement. We're not going to be looking to take down any government payments, most likely, or any bank payments. We're usually going to exclude those. We're also going to exclude anything that's a lower dollar. So if you're paying a caterer once a year for $100, not a recurring payment that we think might be a good fit to ultimately drive monetization on these virtual card and premium ACH payments. So we're going to take those out. That's where you see an exclusion. In the middle of this screen, you're going to see what we felt in this case was a good target, still about 100 million of the spend of the 150, so about 2/3. We then took those, we bumped it up against what we call our network of 600,000 suppliers, and you'll see we have two categories of matches we call out. An open acceptor, which we talked about a bit in the prior slides. These are vendors that pay on behalf of everybody. They take either a virtual card for current payers and future. They take either premium ACH, which is a ACH with a lower cost of a card, but still can be monetized for the payer. We took that, we said, here are the open acceptors, but here are the selective acceptors. So here are ones that might take a virtual card or premium ACH from one, but they like to be asked before they take it for another. So you'll see here, pretty compelling results. So going back to our discussion about, if we had a large check stack, how do I get those down quickly, and how do I do it, at scale versus 1, 2, over time? This is a big jump start to that program, as you can see. What we're targeting has over 50% match rates for open or selective acceptors. That's that power of the network that we talked about, that big differentiator. But then you can see here some of our conversion projections, very conservative. We take a lot of different slices of what we think we can and can't get and why. But through this program, you have a $150 million spend. We carved out about 100 of it. We're going to be projecting to get about 34 million of that to be monetized. So really strong adoption. Your typical card program from a bank you might have or evaluated, 5 to 10% spend adoption is a good program. We're able to drive even more adoption because we have this network. We have all these discussions that are already in flight with those specific vendors, and we have two payment types you can monetize. Next slide. Sorry, I'm fighting off a cold my 6-year-old gave me. We're battling through. So here's another analysis slide we take a look at. We're presenting to a customer. We showed them the results of where's your spend file, here are your matches. Here's where the rubber hits the road, or ultimately where the value can be portrayed the best. So top right-hand corner is where I'll direct you. So virtual card, again, it's a credit card. It's a one-time use credit card. There's a lot of security around that because it's for a specific dollar amount. So if you as a payer are sending Kevin Monroe Incorporated a payment for $1,000,001, if it's for 1 million, it's going to reject. If it's for 1,000,002, it's going to reject. It's a specific amount that is funded to a one-time use credit card. The vendor has to unlock the full account number and pull it down. So you might be familiar with virtual cards, but I figured I'd give you the background there. So same sort of open acceptor concept we talked about here. 11 million of, in this case, the 100 million or so spend we felt was a good target is already ready to go. So you can already start monetizing 11 million on card. 222 vendors there. We think we can also go out and campaign out to any merchant acceptor. So someone we know has a merchant agreement with their bank, they can accept a card. We're going to call them on your behalf. We're going to do letters. We're going to do emails. We're going to get them on board again. So you don't have to. We're making the calls. We're validating the information. In this case, we would see about 14 million of that spend being adopted, but we don't stop there. So if you're evaluating something like this in the past, this is probably the fastball a lot of programs throw. It's a virtual card, it's maybe a one and done campaign, and then it's like, okay, hopefully these vendors stay in, but most likely they kind of tail off over time for a number of reasons. So with this offering with MHC Payment Plus, you have a secondary payment type. So Premium ACH, I'll tell you what that is. So if you have virtual card, it might be 2.53% of a cost to the supplier to accept the payment on a virtual card. They're doing that, that's in place, etc. A Premium ACH is about half that. So we start about 1.5% of the transaction. However, because we own this network, because again, we've purchased it, we've built it up, this is our network, we're able to reduce the fee if we need to for a specific vendor. So we start at 1.5%. Very rarely we have to move off that, but if we have to, we can go anywhere from 0 to 1.5. Credit card payments, we can't do that. No one can really do that. They're regulated payments. So we have that flexibility to drive more adoption. We have the same concept of open acceptors for Premium ACH. So you're going to have, in this case, about 6 million above and beyond the card open acceptors that you can monetize. We're then going to call out to any declines of card payments that said no, because it's a lower cost, but potentially a better mousetrap to get electronic payment and at a lower cost. And as you can see, we're saying in this case about 34 million of that, again, 100 million we're targeting can be monetized and driving over $170,000 of rebate. So this one was a very compelling business case I want to share, because you might have $1 billion of spend, and obviously you can kind of do the math about where that would end up. But this was a hospital with 150 million of AP spend all in, that they weren't getting any monetization, that we could deliver them almost $200,000 of rebate back. So really compelling case here. Wanted to share it. And I'll talk about one more slide here if you want to, Matt, go to the next one. So rebates are typically the compelling point, right? We'll be in a room. I'll go through those slides like I just went through, and someone might say, wow, I haven't been realizing $180,000 a year. This is great. I'm going to be the hero. Let's do that. So that's obviously one big point. Security has to be in place. So we've processed 450 billion, almost $500 billion fraud free. We do that in a couple of different ways. You might say, like, how do you do that? Fraud happens all the time. Yeah, fraud does. People try to fraud us, but the way it works with us, we're validating both sides of the coin. So we have payers we bring in, yourself. We're doing KYC validations. We're also validating the supplier network. So we're not just letting anyone come and join the supplier network. They have to be invited by a payer. When they come into the network, they being the vendor, they put in their membership or information, routing account information. We're validating that. We're the ones making sure that all things match up. So when we do this, we're doing a couple of things. We're making sure that both the dollars and the data are against where it's intended. But we're going through 300 data points here, where supplier puts their information in. We're making sure they say who they are, that their information matches. We're validating the bank information. We're doing document reviews. We're doing phone and email analysis. We're doing digital bank verification. We're doing layered MFA. We're doing behavioral analytics. We're doing device fingerprinting. We're nightly OFAC checks and OFAC checks at the point of inception of the membership. Digital identity verification. We leverage AI heavily to do some automated fraud analytics. This is all to ensure that you, as a payer, have that peace of mind that your payments are going secured, so you can focus on other tasks. AP teams, they do enough. They're not fraud fighters. They do their best, but might as well leave it in the hands of someone like us that's processed payments like this at a high scale, so you can sleep well at night knowing your payments not only are being secured, but also paying you back for your effort. So I've said a lot there. I'll take a breath and rest my voice, and I'll throw it back over to you, Blaine.
You bet. Well, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. So let's kind of review what happens to kind of affect this whole solution. Obviously, to be able to understand the opportunity, you're going to send a trailing 12-month spend file. Your vendors, your transactions that you'd like to be able to see for the pay mode network. You already understand the opportunity. So you basically just send us that file, and then what you'll see is immediately visible payments vendors that are open acceptors in the network, right? Well, once they're identified as acceptors, then you make payments the way you would normally do. And then finally, as payments are made to customers, then you enjoy the payment status visibility and some management capabilities. So the first part, like I said, as vendors are submitted into the network, then many of them are going to be immediately activated because they're open acceptors. Again, a huge difference here between this and traditional card program could be there's check payers that are already accepting card in the network. So now you go away from the operational inefficiency of a check to actually earning a card rebate. Very powerful, right? So what you're seeing here is our NorthStar Payments Plus portal. And again, you have immediate and continual insight into vendors that are activated and their participation in the network, right? We run through activations day after day. So this is kind of an hourly thing where you're seeing new folks coming in ready to pay, right? So very, very flexible. At this point, next slide, Matt. Then, of course, you're able to select and initiate network payments. Now, you might want the control on the ERP side, or you might want to just send the payments here and control on this side. But you can see you have an ability to select and initiate those payments that you'd like to process. You'll basically see then the ability to initiate and then the payment status projected back to you as it goes through the process. Now, we're able to show you not only final payment status, but interim status as well. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see that a number of items have already been processed, and you can see processed successfully, and that's the happy path. But there could be things that we're looking at in terms of in-process payments. Okay, this is awaiting funding, awaiting review. So you have that really deep insight as to are we in a post-funding or a pre-funding condition. You have that level of insight. What's a beautiful thing about that is your vendors have the same insight. They have the ability to go to their portal, be able to see this information. Also, they receive remittance information in a format that suits them. So they have rich remittance reporting in addition to having cash forecasting capabilities through the vendor portal. Like I say, most of the payments are going to be resolved successfully. If there are issues, you'll see this. If there's a return payment, then you'll see why it got returned. Maybe it was an ACH code, insufficient funds, things like this. Sometimes it may be an issue at the vendor side. And that's okay because the network team can actually resolve some of those issues. Maybe an account was closed on that side. You're not having to deal with the issue. You have the benefit of the network effect. They're working out, they're reaching with the vendor and saying, hey, can we get a new updated vendor bank account? Yeah, we've changed and we're over here. And basically, all you know is a different couple of interim statuses. So all of that vendor interaction is happening through the network team. So again, this is reduced administration benefit that we see. Also, it's very useful to be able to make a stop payment in some cases. So if you see payments that are in process and you decide you want to take a stop payment action, you'll do that right through the portal. For our existing customers, this should look very familiar to you because this should look exactly like your check and PPay or ACH experiences. So you kind of have the benefit of one-stop shopping regardless. Now, if you have a situation where you want to make payments outside of MHC, there's no problem. Existing card program, no problem. But we are able to be your one-stop shop and again, afford these types of benefits. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so if this is compelling to you and you'd like to understand a little bit more around this, it's pretty simple to get started. You can generate a spend file from your ERP detailing the supplier specific spend over the last 12 months. We have some ways to make that easier for you. We have some guidance as to how specifically you should report back that information. And then it's just sit back and wait for us to be able to do a match and see what your opportunity is, not only initially, but through what we project as the campaign benefit. You can contact us at info@mhcautomation.com or at the phone number you see here, and we'll analyze the file. Give us about a week or so to be able to get through some of those things, and then we'll be able to ready to schedule a meeting with you and help you see what understand what your opportunity is. All right. Next slide, Matt. I think we're on to questions.
Questions. And so
All
now
right.
we want to hear questions from you, our attendees. Please add any questions that you have to the chat and specify whether that is for Kevin or for Blaine. Let's see, it does look like we have a few questions here. The first one, we already have a card program, so why would adding Payments Plus card features be of use to our organization, and how would the two programs work together?
I can grab that, Matt. So it's not uncommon that you might have a card program in place, virtual card. You might have a a T&E card or a purchasing card or the hard plastic cards. Again, we're looking at the virtual cards, so supplier payments. I often say, especially if the program's been kind of up and running and kind of humming along, and you guys are happy with the rebates you're getting, keep it in place. We're looking to complement that program and kind of pick up any dollars being left on the table. More often than not, I'll have a $200 million AP company, AP spend company, and they say, hey, I have a card program. Like, what's the adoption? I'm like, all right, I have 5% adoption. So I have $10 million on my spend that I'm getting a rebate on. I'm really happy about it. Like, great. So what are you doing the other 95% of your spend? What's going on there? And they're like, well, nothing. So let's take a look at that 95. To Blaine's point, let's get a 12-month spend file of that. Just carve off the card stuff and give us the rest. We'll come back to you and say, okay, here's what we can do with our card program. There's nothing saying you can't run two card programs. We just told a customer that we're the third card program because we had more adoption than the other two, and they were happy with it. So you can run two programs, be fine. We can also just complement what you're doing, but keep in mind that payment type of Premium ACH as well. That's going to cast a wider net that maybe card can't. So we're there to drive more monetization, more adoption of electronic payment type above and beyond that card program today. So don't have to replace it if you're happy with it. It's just picking up potentially opportunity that's not being capitalized on.
Great, thanks for that, Kevin. Looks like we have another question here. How does being part of the network benefit vendors? Can you help me understand the remittance options and what visibility the vendor has within the network?
Of course. So, the vendor's the one paying for the party. Let's call it what it is. So they're the ones that are going to be, paying a fee on your payments as well as all payers that are paying them through this network. The fees vary. Like I said, if it's a card, it might be higher. If it's a Premium ACH, it might be lower. But that's what generates the revenue and the rebates. So that's how the model works. I'm sure you can be aware with. So the vendor has to have value. So we have to provide tools. So the vendor says, yes, I want to get paid this way, and I'm willing to pay to get paid. So what we do, these are vendors not being paid usually by one customer. It's many tens and hundreds of customers through our network, so the volume's there. So it's a nice chunk of their overall receivables coming through our method. So we're doing a couple different things. So remittance is key. So what are they getting paid for, and how can I post that properly and more efficiently? A lot of our vendors will just be fine with what we're passing them standard, which is remittance in the body of an email. We're sending it to our portal. They can pull down that information in real time. They can see status progressions, as Blaine mentioned. We're giving that to their vendor, like, hey, 24 hours in advance, here's what's going to hit your account. 48 hours in advance, here's what's going to hit your account. We're also giving them the rich remittance detail, so they have the invoice number, comments, they have everything that they need that would essentially be on a check stub. We're delivering that electronically to them. So in the portal, for audit purposes, reporting purposes, because we're storing it all in one place, we're aggregating for not just one customer, for many. They can do it one by one customer or all their entire membership. We're storing 7 years historical data, so they can always go through and drill down into real granular level about what they're getting paid for, export that as necessary. As you can imagine, it'd be a lot harder if it's outside of pay mode and they're getting PDFs as an attachment in email. They got to kind of cobble things together. If their controller, whoever's ever getting audited, here's what we got paid for. So it's the easy use for the reporting. For our larger suppliers, we can deliver CTX or EDI transmission, EDI 835, directly so they can auto post their payments. So they don't have to manually key them in. For some of our larger suppliers that are paying the larger fees and have more complexities, we can develop a custom AR file that, again, can be fed right into their ERP. So they're posting potentially hundreds of thousands of payments without having a manual touch. There's value there. It's worth paying for. And then the third thing would be that they want to keep their customers happy. So we might bake in, and we do, a lot of functionality into what they're getting as a membership in the network, but also you're asking them to accept the payment method this way. A lot of customers want to appease their customers and at the masses, and they'll sign on for these programs, as that being part of their decision.
Great. Thank you so much for detail on that, Kevin. Looks like we have one more question here. Can you explain again, just briefly, how you would manage all my payment types? We still have checks that we need to process. I know that was touched on a bit earlier, so maybe just to quickly address that question.
Absolutely. When we onboard your vendors, we establish a unique remit ID for each vendor, right? And so we know about that unique vendor remit, Paymode knows about it, and your ERP knows about it. And with that information, then we're able to know exactly what payments should be directed through the network and which payments might be directed through traditional means. If you want to keep those payments and directly make those to the ERP, maybe it's an ACH, maybe it's a card, then absolutely that's possible. You have that insight as to which vendors are part of the network, right? But if you can envision a solution where we're your one-stop provider, then you just make payments and we basically direct them to the handler, right? Check and PPay, ACH. Not everybody's going to go to Premium ACH. You're always going to have an ACH community there. And then the Premium and Card program payment types that are handled through the network. Again, one-stop shopping. Bring the data to us. We'll direct it to the correct experience, but it's all a NorthStar Payments Plus experience.
Great. Thanks for that, Blaine. We're going to wrap up questions for now. If you still have questions, I encourage you to connect with MHC through the email you see posted here or directly with the panelists on LinkedIn. We would love to have a conversation with you. And thanks again to both Kevin and Blaine for all the great insights around the NorthStar Payments Plus. And thanks to our attendees today for attending. As you leave, please be reminded to watch for an email with the link to the recording and please share. And also, please take a moment to complete the survey as you exit. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.